G'day, my name is Tom Plevey, and today I'll be presenting a biomechanical analysis of a running long jump performance. Alrighty, so when it comes to running long jump, there are a number of critical features that will influence the total distance. But a concept echoed throughout the literature by authors such as Hay, Linthorne, and Lees, whose papers we'll discuss later, is that the most important variables are horizontal velocity at takeoff and vertical velocity at takeoff. Now, you can see here the features I've chosen to analyze are in blue, and they are based off these variables of horizontal and vertical velocity at takeoff. So to maximize horizontal velocity, we need to do two things. We need to maximize running speed in the approach run, which you can see here, and we need to reduce the horizontal braking impulse. So we need to reduce the reduction of this running speed that we've gained in the approach. And this is primarily determined by the knee angle of the lead leg at takeoff. So this is the second variable there. When it comes to vertical velocity, the most important thing is creating a maximum ground reaction force at takeoff. By using the correct foot replacement relative to your center of mass, contact time will be increased and allow for more force production. And by using the correct foot strike, we will effectively utilize the stress shortening cycle of the plantar flexors and also be able to increase that ground reaction force. When filming the long jump itself, there were a number of considerations made to ensure the footage can be effectively analyzed. The athlete was given specific instructions and set up in contrasting clothing with reflective markers equipped on anatomical locations. It's important to note, due to equipment limitations, the setup used a cone placed to the side instead of a typical long jump board, as well as a high jump mat for landing rather than a sandpit that is typically used. This obviously impacted the total distance and meant that we couldn't get an accurate recording of total distance jumped. The footage was filmed at 240 FPS on an iPhone and analyzed using the Canovia software. So the first critical feature analyzed is approach velocity. Now, this is the velocity of the runner in the approach phase, which is the running phase prior to when the takeoff foot touches the ground. This approach velocity was measured in Canovia using the human model tool to calculate center of mass in two different frames, which were 0.033 seconds apart. And then the distance between these two sites was measured. And from this, we're able to calculate the velocity, as you can see here, 11.8 meters per second. This figure on the right here comes from a 2008 meta-analysis of 5 studies and contains long jumps from various professional athletes, both men and women. And it shows us two things. The first is the strong relationship between approach velocity and velocity at takeoff. In professional athletes, the approach velocity is a very strong predictor of velocity at takeoff, and ultimately, the total distance jumped. The second thing this graph shows us is some normative values for the speeds of professional long jumps. So when we compare this to our athlete, who achieved 11.8 meters per second, you can see this puts them quite high on the end of the graph. Despite their moderate experience, they're running above the speeds of many professionals in the long jump field. Now, this high speed might seem quite suspicious, but there's two important limitations we need to notice. So first of all, professionals typically don't reach top speed, as they rather focus accuracy for speed in those last few steps of the approach run. And as you can see here, the athlete was quite inaccurate. They were likely just focusing on achieving a maximum speed as fast as they could run, rather than being accurate to the cone. And the second limitation is that the speed was measured using 4 frames of Canovia, a 2D analyzing software, and the calibration may not be entirely accurate. Both the time or the distance could be slightly off. The second quantitative feature analyzed was knee angle at takeoff. This was measured using the angle feature in Canovia at the initial touchdown of the takeoff foot, which is generally regarded as the start of the takeoff phase and the end of the approach phase. In this moment, the athlete achieved a maximum knee angle of 144.1 degrees, or roughly 76 degrees from a horizontal reference line. Why is this important? Well, a study by Linthorne explains too much flexion of the knee increases horizontal braking impulse and reduces the athlete's horizontal velocity that was gained through the approach run. Aram Patsis and colleagues builds on this, suggesting the reason for increased braking impulse is due to a lack of spring stiffness in the leg, meaning a large degree of horizontal velocity is absorbed through the knee rather than transferred, like a spring, into creating vertical impulse. A 2006 paper by Linthorne and Bridget on 71 jumps from an elite long jumper suggested that to maximize total distance, an athlete must use a knee angle of 61 degrees from horizontal in conjunction with a maximal velocity approach run. Similarly, a paper by Campos and colleagues analysed 41 valid jumps from 8 professional long jumpers and found, on average, the maximum knee angle an athlete achieved was 165 degrees, significantly greater than what the athlete has shown here. So due to the athlete's insufficient knee angle at the start of takeoff, over 50% of their velocity gained in the approach run was lost at takeoff. And you can see that here with the velocity of approach 11.8 meters per second, cut down almost by half to 6 meters per second at takeoff.
Angle of projection is an idea explored throughout the literature and can be defined as the angle that an athlete's center of mass takes as they leave the ground during the takeoff phase. It is directly determined by horizontal and vertical velocities at takeoff. A 2017 study by Cott et al. Explains that to optimize this angle of projection, the athlete must maximize their vertical velocity while minimizing the lost horizontal velocity. In this presentation, we've already discussed horizontal velocity through the quantitative variables. However, vertical velocity has not yet been mentioned. This is where foot placement comes in. By placing the takeoff foot well in front of the body and the center of mass, the period of time for which vertical force can be generated is extended. So the further in front the foot reaches, the more contact time there is with the ground, which is more time that vertical force can be generated. This concept comes from a foundational paper in the long jump literature by Lee et al. In this image, it is clearly seen that the athlete has utilized this feature and extended the foot well in front of center mass. The center of mass can be seen by the little marker there and the orange line projecting it downwards towards the ground. The second qualitative variable is foot stroke. As you can see here, there are 3 types of foot stroke: rear foot, flat foot, and forefoot. Previously mentioned 1993 paper by Lees and colleagues shows the importance of using a rear foot approach, as it does 2 things. Firstly, it reduces some of the horizontal braking forces acting against the runner, allowing the body to smoothly transfer over the foot. Secondly, it allows for the use of the stretch shortening cycle of the ankle flexors. Because the foot begins dorsiflexed and is immediately plantarflexed, the elastic properties of the muscle contribute some additional force compared to a foot that is already landing flat or plantarflexed. Once again, you can see this critical feature has been well utilized by the athlete, and a clear rear foot approach is seen in the image there on the left. From the analysis, one main fault is quite obvious. This is the athlete's degree of knee flexion. Too much knee flexion is limiting the spring stiffness of the lead leg and increasing horizontal braking impulse, which in turn reduces velocity at takeoff and reduces the total distance the athlete will jump. To improve this, guide the athlete to reach their takeoff foot further forward of their center of mass and subsequently straighten their knee angle. Based on papers by Bridget and Linthorne and Campos, increasing the angle to a range of around 160 to 170 degrees appears to be optimal. This is roughly 15 degrees greater than what the athlete has achieved in this jump. Additionally, this further extension will also improve the athlete's issues with accuracy. As you can see here, the athlete was quite inaccurate, 67 centimeters away from the cone. It is also recommended to use an official long jump board rather than a cone placed off to the side. This is because the cone, specifically placed off to the side, will impact the athlete's visual control strategy in their last few steps. This is an idea posed by Hay in 1988.